Hello, Buddhas! Today we are going to be talking about the truth. Now, Buddhas, before we get started, I've got a playlist down below in the doodly-doo that you can binge watch to accelerate your spiritual awakening. And if you're also down there, you can hit that subscribe, that like button, comment, helps the algorithm. We can get this to everyone! Now, what is the truth? Well, the truth, ultimately, is someone's perspective. Now, there are truths in mathematics that seem to be repeatable within this known quantum space of a universe, but an argument could be made that those truths can also be broken, etc. And the more math we do, the more we figure out that things work in more complicated ways, and etc. And you can make all kinds of arguments. But we're not going to specifically talk about physics and math today, which we will in the future. What we are going to talk about today is the truth of the words and the language that you use to describe and express your life, and why that is so powerful. Now, Buddhas, the other night, I went to bed and I was in a fit. I could not sleep very well this one time. And it was incredible because I was working out some karmas and some things. My legs were just not relaxing. I could not sleep. And it was really weird and a little bit scary, but a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, I ended up falling asleep and I was able to do my job the next day just a little bit on the tired side. But if I went around all day telling people that that day I hadn't slept the night before, how well do you think I would have slept that night? I'll tell you, I wouldn't have. I would have propagated that same experience into my next evening, and so on, and so on, and so on. And how do I know this to be the case? Introspectively looking at my life and talking about how I actually talk about the things that I'm talking about. It's amazing. You can watch all the videos down below and you'll start to understand the flow that I'm going through here. What I did instead was I told people that I was a little tired that day, but I slept like a baby. Now the power in that is this morning, having woken up, I had the best dreams last night. I slept like an absolute baby, and the reason that that is because I talked about the previous night in a positive light, even though, and I'm sharing this with you, Buddhas, not to propagate it, but in order to make a set point here, even though the night before, objectively speaking, was not what I would consider to be the greatest night of all time. But in not propagating that experience to others and not saying, like, yeah, my night last night was real difficult and I didn't sleep and I had a fit and it was really bad. Meh. Instead of doing that all day long to everyone who asked, I told them that I slept really well. And I'm not talking to hundreds of people here, just a couple people. But the power in choosing the words that I use instilled into my own mind that I had slept well. And in doing so, the night thereafter, the night that was coming up on the day that I had been talking about it, I slept like a baby, and I intend to sleep like a baby again tonight and for the rest of my life, because sleeping like a baby is fantastic. And really, ultimately, this comes down to a Neville Goddard concept about fudging the record. I don't remember the Bible quotes that he uses specifically, because the Bible is not as dear to me, although it is a very powerful book, as it was to Neville Goddard. And if you've seen anything about Neville Goddard, his whole shtick, his whole raison d'être, is interpreting the Bible, what I like to think as correctly. Now that's an interpretation on an interpretation, but hey, you be the judge, go read it. Now, what he talks about is fudging the record and how that is actually what God, sorry to trigger anyone, but quotes on this because it's an idea, not a person, but the idea, the imagination of fudging the record and just saying like, yeah, that thing that I did back there that was terrible was actually fantastic. Haha, love it. And the more you do that, the more you start to instill that attitude. It's really an attitude about your life, and you look back on even terrible events and say, you know what, that was great, I learned a ton from that, and you know what, that was a really challenging experience, but I loved it, and you know what, last night I slept like a baby. Well, I don't remember being a baby, so I might have slept like a baby actually last night, and that's how babies sleep, who knows. But the real truth, the real point that I'm trying to get at here with this long kind of brought out story is that you get to decide your record. All of the time, Buddhas, you are in charge of how you describe your life. Whew, so if you want to go around and tell people that you are sick, because you know what? I've been there. You might not believe it, but I've been there. We're going to talk about it at some point when I feel comfortable. But if you go around telling everyone, yeah, you know what, I've got this thing and it really sucks. My life is terrible. Well, if you go around doing that, you're just bringing way more of that into your life. Good job. Now, I get it. Been there, done that, stopped. And then it stopped. It was amazing. Oh my God. But mostly, think about all the other people. If you can't do it for yourself, which I realize is challenging at first, but you got to start getting better at it. If you can't do it for yourself, do it for them. Why are you trying to instill this negative version of yourself into their lives? That's terrible. Oh my God, when I stopped doing that, I started feeling so much better. So, Buddhas, ultimately here, what we're doing is we're not lying per se, specifically in order to deceive anyone. And there's a whole other topic we're going to talk about at another point about lying in order to gain or hurt. But we're not lying in order to hurt or deceive or cause harm to anyone. What we're doing is writing things into the ledger about how we would have wanted them to have gone, and by doing that in a constant manner, you're actually writing the truth into the ledger. And if you have the power to create your own truth, then Buddhists, you've got the power to create the entire universe. So, quick recap. If you had a terrible event happen and you want to go and talk to a bunch of people about it, good for you. You're just going to be causing more crap to happen for you and for them. Brilliant. However, if something happens to you and you can process it yourself because you're a big boy or girl and you realize that I don't need to tell everyone about this thing, like that's just going to victimize me, oh my God, and you actually decide that you're going to be an adult and take that ownership and then just start telling people that you're doing fantastic. Again, not about like, if you have a freaking broken arm, go to the doctor, but like the small stuff, especially start with that. Then you're going to start creating a reality that you actually enjoy being in. And when you start to do that, you're going to go back and you're going to look at yourself and you're going to go, why did I ever do it any other way at all? This is ridiculous. God. Buddhas, at the end of the day, remember, the single most important thing before I go on to tirade is to love yourself.